Hey, welcome to City Church's podcast. Brent, Finlay, the CEO of the Anaheim family YMCA. This is Digging Deeper, a ministry of City Church, and we tackle topics, truths, and testimonies that we don't have time to on Sundays. And so I'm excited to be here with Brent Finlay today. Brent, welcome to Digging Deeper, our podcast.
Thank you so much, Kyle. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to talk a little bit about my journey and certainly the YMCA, near and dear to my heart, and just to be here. Glad to be here.
Glad you're here. Well, we've enjoyed getting to know each other over the last year or so, and so I would love if you just share a little bit about yourself first, maybe where you grew up, a little bit of your story, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's always challenging to talk about yourself, right? I always like talking to people and knowing them and getting to know their stories. But, so my story's, maybe a little boring, but grew up, was raised in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, through high school, went on to do my undergrad at the University of North Dakota. I decided to leave the warm, somewhat balmy weather of the West Coast to be one of the coldest parts of the United States. So a little adjustment there, but what doesn't kill you maybe makes you a little stronger. So maybe got a little bit of grit from that 4-year experience. And then I went on and did graduate studies at the University of Idaho. And from that point on...
what was your degree in?
I did my degree undergrad degree was in biology and physical education, and then graduate was exercise science.
Awesome.
So I, kind of knew where I wanted to apply myself career and work-wise, and really started my Y career in 1988 in Midland, Texas. So after leaving grad school, it was right into a full-time career. I probably really thought about the career being either in education, coaching, somewhat applying, kinesiology and biomechanics. Probably at a sophomore level in high school, went to a career fair, and we were told to go in with having open mind, but you had to come away from the career fair of knowing what you wanted to do. So you got to make something of yourself. So, coming back, I said, that sounds like a pathway that I would want to glide into, and it kind of worked out that way. So, proud father of 4 kids. They're in all different parts of the globe right now, it seems. Our oldest daughter is in Hong Kong teaching at American Academy School as a math teacher. Older son lives in Wisconsin, runs a small little business with his family and our 2 grandkids that reside with him and his wife. And then younger son lives in Austin, Texas with our 2-year-old granddaughter and new grandbaby to be coming here in the middle part of June, number 2 for them. And then our youngest daughter lives in New Orleans with her husband, and we'll be seeing them this weekend as they move to Cincinnati with her husband just completing law school at Tulane University. So 4 kids, again, 3 grandkids keep us moving in every direction. Sorry, 4 grandkids. I better get that one right. And just a fantastic spouse partner in Julie, who's been with me ever since we started this crazy career. We've punched our passport, I think, in 6 different states with the Y career. Wow. Always an essence of taking on kind of a newer, larger, maybe bigger challenge, in our organization. And it's been great to know and meet people in all different parts of the country from every walk of life, typically, which is, how a YMCA builds itself and its purpose and its mission to work with people in that particular community. So, you spring forward 35 years later, you're still doing it. You're still loving the work. You're loving people in the community you're in, and. So maybe a little bit about me in terms of hobbies and passions. I used to think that I could once ever maybe become a 5 handicap golfer. 15 years ago, I realized that was never going to happen. I worked too hard. Maybe a little bit of that workaholicism has entered my veins. But so a little bit of golf. But I probably spend more time now. Again, as my hobby is just working out and training. My wife and I we're those crazy people that get up at 4:45 in the morning and go to the gym every day to hang out and clang some weights around. But I started that maybe 2 years ago, coming back after, unfortunately, and being in the Y space, 30 years of really not being active. Obviously, hard to preach it when you don't practice it, but that was me. But 2 years ago, I said, no, enough's enough. And I really want to get back and look at taking care of myself. So really, doing that to grow and hopefully be around for a number of years of grandkids activities, being able to be there on the sidelines, cheering them along and just being a part of their life. But also, I think setting a bit of a standard, right, for healthy living. So that's incredibly important to Julie and I right now.
Yeah, modeling that is so important. I mean, I'm a big proponent of that. We've talked about it. I'm a CrossFit guy. And I tell people I never, ever want to get up at 4:55 when my alarm goes off. I never feel like it gets easier as you do it, but I never want to. And it's never something I'm looking forward to doing. But when I've done it, I always feel better. And I always feel like, okay, I'm so glad that I did that. And I know you're into that too. How did you meet your wife? I'd like to hear that story.
Well, it's a great story. This is one of those moments where I absolutely used my position in the YMCA to get to meet somebody. So she was a general manager of a restaurant in Wisconsin, and I've gone in a few times and saw her walking by and maybe behind the counter, and I said, wouldn't it be great to meet her? So with ulterior motives in place, I used the excuse to meet her is to sell a corporate membership program or plan to her organization. So I finally got up enough gumption and nerve to drop it off, and luckily enough, she actually called me back the same day, and so we set up a meeting at the Y, and we started dating. And the funny note is we played racquetball, and we went mini golfing, and we went sailing, and so I think she was telling her mom, I think he just wants to play sports with me. So I had to ask or elevate the program a little bit, but luckily for me, she did say yes. And again, she's been just a great trooper. Giving up her careers as we moved on to different cities and different states for my Y career. So my greatest fan, and she really gets it, and she's just a great life partner. I couldn't ask for a better person to be around every day.
How many years have you been married now?
31 years.
31 years. Awesome.
Yeah, so
that's exciting.
She'll say we've been married 62 years, 31 years each. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, or she's just trying to be funny, but.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about your family and a little bit of your Y career stuff, but tell me a little bit about your own personal faith journey. How has that transpired in your life?
Yeah, you have a great question, Kyle. I knew what the Christian mission was of the YMCA when I first began full time. I dabbled with a Y experience part-time in college, and I did a couple of Y programs when I was younger, when I was 8, 9, and 10. But from 10 on until entering college, the Y was not a part of my life. But when you enter the career full time as a director, there's that C element in the Y that captures your attention. And you want to learn more about it and the history and how it is to see exuded in the Y. And so quickly, it brought me back. I was somewhat active in church growing up, but it wasn't something that we had a real steadfast. We weren't extreme. Our attendance was very, very spotty as a family. A lot of our weekends were when we were younger kids, we were involved in so many sport activities. So we were constantly on the road, games, tournaments, and church was probably took it on the chin in terms of having that steadfast attendance. So I think it was really upon entering my full-time career in 1988 that I felt just a deeper connection. I wanted to, experience more. I wanted to grow, my faith, and from that point on, it was probably the moment of truth for me. And it's obviously been something that's been very important to me and our family, really ever since 1988. So, but I would also say that growing up kids and having kids being active in a lot of sports, there were many Sundays we were traveling again, just like I did as a young child, with our kids coming back. And maybe it sounds like that's not the best approach, but it was just it was what we tried to do the best we could. And again, having our kids part of church programs with everything from vacation Bible school to obviously attending when we could, and made it the huge priority. So I think that's it was probably the why that brought me into having a deeper spiritual and obviously my relationship with God.
That's awesome. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, I think it was till I was in college that I knew that Y was a Christian organization. And someone was like, Young Men's Christian Association. That's what it stands for. Or
that's spot on.
And I was like,
So what does that mean? What do they do? How do they associate?
And I mean, but I guess it's like a lot of things that start out that way, but how cool that God used that to pique your interest in, okay, what's the C? What is that capital C all about? And I could see to myself, if I were involved in something, I'd want to get to know it. And kind of a little sidebar here, but one of the things that is always a delicate balance for me as a pastor is how to guide families who have kids who are actively involved in sports. And I try to be real, not legalistic about that, because on the one hand, I think people expect the pastor to say, don't ever miss a Sunday, sacrifice if there's a sport on a Sunday. But in the real world, kids want to do things, they want to try stuff. And so how do you recommend parents balance that today? Looking back over your story and where you're at now, what would you tell a parent today about that?
I think that's a great point. And I would segue is it's always quality over quantity. If quantity is being in church 52 Sundays a year versus say you're able to make 20 services a year, I think it's still the frequency is still important, but it's the quality and that it's still part of your family's life. I think you're right. I think families want to explore opportunities for children, be it in sports, be it in art, be it in dance, and sometimes it does take that family away from being able to be in a service. Personally, when I was involved in scheduling programs through the Y, I would always try to avoid anything from like a 10 to 1 on Sundays. Yeah. Maybe we'd have some activities happening, say soccer games at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, but kind of keeping that window open.
Right.
And I probably was criticized for that over the years, but I felt like that was a special time frame in our community, not to intentionally have stuff going on that would give people maybe options instead of being in church on a Sunday.
That's good. And for me, I mean, the way I deal with that as a pastor today is, number one, we're online right now. This is an online only thing. We have all kinds of ways of connecting with people all the time. And so I would always value engagement all week long over just 1 hour on a Sunday morning. So what I tell people, and we got a couple right now who we know is real active in sports and things. They're not able to come a whole lot on Sundays, and they love the church and they love Jesus and all that. But you know what? I'll tell you, they're super faithful about their small group and our groups on Zoom. So what I always say is just, hey, if you're in a season when you can't make it on a Sunday, whatever that is, stay connected and involved in some way, whether that's, preferably a small group. Find a small group you can meet with during the week, because, we can always make that time in there. And so that's what I encourage parents to do. It's like, listen, like if there's a season you can't come on Sunday, small group, that's what it's there for you to meet other people. And in the meantime, I think all of us are wanting to connect with the Lord. There's so many ways of doing things nowadays. We have multiple service options. And so I'm with you on that. So I would just say, if anyone out there, you're feeling the weight of that at a phase of life that you're in, just stay connected and stay engaged relationally. I believe that everything good in life comes from relationship. And if the relationship and the friendship that we have is genuine, more connection and connectivity will come of that, not less. And so I've always tried to make it a goal as a pastor, never to make someone feel bad if they're not there, but just to stay strongly relationally connected, and in hope and in faith that God would work in their own heart to adjust their schedule just the right way.
And I believe that encouragement, I think, is the right angle, and not to maybe attendance shame people, because again, then they're, the guilt may be so overburdening that then they walk away, and that's not what you want to see happen.
You don't want anyone to have that taste in their mouth.
I think
about
they don't want
God.
to be alienated, but you're right. There's so many different tools, ways and means where they can stay engaged, and I think that is just a level of engagement I think is absolutely the framework that's going to be positive in their lives. And again, their lives will change as maybe kids get older. Again, like Julie and I, our kids have been long gone out of the home, and so we're able to do things that we didn't do when our kids were with us and needing our attention. So
that's right.
we're absolutely thrilled at this time of our lives to be able to kind of be able to focus and do the things that we really want to do per se.
Your wife is one of my wife's most faithful kids volunteers. So we see the fruit of that. So on that note, tell me a little bit about how you guys heard about City Church and just how you found out about it. And I'll ask you another question after that.
Yeah, we moved into Anaheim about a year and a half ago. And upon moving to Anaheim from Woodland Hills, California, obviously we wanted to begin window shopping church. And Kyle, I always love his term in service when those are out there trying to reach out to those that are window shopping along. So we were window shopping, and we actually started attending a church over in Orange. And I think Julie had driven by the street a couple times and looked at the sign and maybe looked at the website and certainly noted that it's about a 9-minute walk for us, just down the street, if you will. And her idea is, let's always be walking. We don't need to drive.
Yes.
Let's walk
Yes.
from where we're living here in downtown Anaheim. So I think the distance and the proximity was really, really
That's
attractive
huge.
to her. So, we had that maybe our first visit maybe 9 months ago, 10 months ago. And we just really fell in love with the church and got to meet you a couple different times, and we obviously we found that connection and certainly that bond, and here we are today. And so we have a church home, and we're happy and we're proud of it, and want to do all we can. And there's so much more I know we can do and will do, but we're happy that the proximity was the deal maker.
I'm a big believer in. I think within a 20-minute drive, most people, it's okay, especially because on Sundays there's usually not traffic, and now a lot of small groups are online. However, I will be direct and say we found the people who are the most plugged into the church live close. And it just is a factor, because during the week, you're not going to be apt to go to a Bible study if there's a lot of traffic or whatever. Now, we try to work around that by making Zoom and other things, so it eliminates some of the things that might make people not want to be plugged in. But you're right, proximity is huge. And I see that year after year after year as the pastor. So that's how you found it. What made you decide to want to come back a second time after you guys came and checked it out once?
I think it was your sermon, that particular. I don't remember which one it was, but I thought when we talked about it on the way home, that we found it very engaging. And again, looking at the various church members that were there that morning, and that group looks similar to us, and maybe more in the age demographic per se. And we'd certainly done some background homework. Again, looking at the ministries,
making sure I'm not a cult leader or nothing.
Yeah.
One of my mentors often says that it's important when someone walks into a church that they like the atmosphere, they like the environment, but they need to be able to look around and see a couple people who they feel like they could be friends with. Because if at the end of the day, that's what we're here to do, is to make relationship, right? And so that's good to hear that.
And we were new to the community, still feel new to the community, but and we looked at that as an opportunity again to make more friends. And we've always had great friends from different churches, and still friends with most of these people that we've carried through, really the last 25, 30 years. So
that's awesome.
We knew that was a great, the church would be a great place to harvest new friendships.
That's awesome. So now I want to transition and talk a little bit about the why, because I just have some personal curiosities about it, and I think it's such a cool topic. Just now since I have a CEO of the why sitting right here. First off, we were able to host together the Easter egg hunt this year. Thank you for being a part of that with us and making all that possible. Hundreds of families came out. It was great. We're going to build on it and just keep making it better and better. But tell me a little bit about the YMCA, and I'm specifically interested in the Christian roots part, because maybe like me, some people don't know that, and I think it's just a cool thing. So I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, no, the Christian emphasis in the Y, we were talking earlier, is different in different parts of the country, and that's just the way it is right now, State of the Union. But it really all began back in 1844 when the Y first began in London, England, and the sole purpose for the Y being birthed, if you will, was our founding father George Williams, who was an ordained minister, and he was 25 at the time.
Wow.
He was working with a group of young men, 6 to 12, maybe 14 young men who were going down the wrong pathways, spiritually, mentally, physically in London, England at the time, unemployed and just, abusing alcohol. And so George Williams brought this group in and called it the Young Men's Christian Association. So Bible study, group study, small group work. And so the defining moment was getting these young men to look at life in a different way and to point them into obviously on a better pathway to live their lives. So that's how the Y began. Christian-based, Christian learning, faith in Jesus Christ. And here we are today, and we've morphed 170 something years later into a variety of different programs and services. One of the most important programs that YMCA's still do in really the decentralized parts of Africa is how to grow food at a better level. How do you grow food in sand, right? So that's an extremely important program. We have I believe there were prior to the war, 12 YMCA's in the Ukraine that were all basically in programs that brought in people, again, the homeless population. So that was the main program and the thrust of the Ukraine Ys. And so, our Y here in Anaheim has a great story. We began in 1911, and the future mayor, who was 13 years of age at the time, Charles Pearson, he was going around on his bike, riding through neighborhoods here in the colony area, raising money to build a Y. And so he was, very successful, and there was obviously a large group of people that got on board for the initial fundraising campaign. But the Y here in Anaheim started because a 13-year-old had a dream and had vision for Anaheim and Anaheim's residents, that something could be introduced to their lives and be life-changing in spirit, mind, and body. So here we are, 113 years later, and we're a thriving YMCA with large programs in our after-school program with over 6,000 children that we work with every day in the after-school setting on the blacktop. Hundreds and hundreds of kids in swim lessons. Kyle, I know your kids have done some swim lessons.
And right now they're doing the gymnastics.
And doing gymnastics. So we do everything we can in our 5 city areas. So we have a service area that encompasses 5 cities: Anaheim, Stanton, La Palma, parts of Buena Park, and Cypress. And so that's a population of about 650,000 people. That's our responsibility. Every Y in the country has a geographical boundary, and so your responsibility is to service those groups of cities or communities. So we've got a large footprint to serve. We'll have about 20,000 people that we will actually have served this past year in all programs combined. And as you said, we just added the Easter egg hunt to that work, and we thought it was an incredible moment of time. And nothing was happening at the Y Soccer Community Complex at the time. We call it the Soccer Complex, Community Complex. Right now, that's all we're operating as our large youth soccer program. But down hopefully in the next 2.5 years, we'll complete a large capital campaign, and we'll be putting a whole lot more physical infrastructure, basketball courts, pickleball courts, speed, sport, and youth conditioning spaces, a building where we'll have multi-purpose rooms. So we'll be running just a cadre of programs and classes that really benefit a community. So we're excited for this great future of the Anaheim Y, and from there on, further out, we still have a dream of serving more people with collaborations and partnerships in place, but it is a very, very bright future ahead of the Y.
I love your heart to work with other groups of people, and I think we share that trait of being connectors of people and seeing people who are like-minded and kind of putting them where they need to be to really most benefit the community. And I immediately latched onto that. And I, like, when we met him, like, he's a connector just like me. I love that. And I love the story of the YMCA, and I love the foundation of it being in England, of course, a pastor, basically, right, who started it. But then here specifically in Anaheim, what a great story of a guy riding around on his bike, trying to make money or raise money to build the YMCA. And I think about it, all these almost 111 years later, I wasn't too different. I wasn't riding around on a bike, but I was driving around in a car trying to get people to believe in this thing called City Church that God had a plan for. And here you are, you're not riding around on a bike, but you're going around saying, hey, we're trying to build something here.
Still spreading the word, telling the story every day again. And I think you hit the real nail on the head. I think a great community is predicated on a collaborative stance. You can't do anything alone anymore. And if you try, I think you'll find such an incredible failure level. So I think if you are like-minded and collaborative in nature, you'll get the best for your community. So I think that's something that we definitely share very deeply in our core, and we really believe it makes a huge difference. So
it makes a huge difference, and I've had to learn that the hard way, unfortunately. I think as a church planter, you think, I got to innovate and create everything. And it's like early on, it's like, dude, there are people already doing this so much better than you're ever going to do it. So why don't you just figure out who those people are and join up with them? Because that was some advice I was given really early on in ministry. Saved me a lot of heartache. And it's so cool to see the power of when people come together, different walks of faith. Many people at that Easter egg hunt, all kinds of different faiths. You could clearly see it by different ways that people were attired, and that's what we're all about. We want people to know and feel and love the love of Jesus right where they're at. So I just want to thank you again for being a part of that.
We'll do it forever together. So
that's awesome.
Guaranteed.
That's awesome. Well, Brent Finlay, thank you for taking some time to be with us today. And any final words you want to tell our friends before we sign off here today?
Just two things. Come down to the Y anytime. Check us out on our website, as well as certainly come down and check out City Church. And I think you'll find two great homes for you and your family. Kyle, really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you so much. And again, I really enjoyed getting to know you better, and obviously your church staff. And we have a great home here, and we're just glad to be a part of it and glad to serve.
That's awesome. I would say the same thing. Our family loves the Y, and so. If you got kids, and I know there's stuff for adults too, so not just for kids, but especially, man, with kids, there's so many things. Check it out if you're not already doing it. You'll be blessed because of it. So that's all we got for you today. Until the next time, Brent Finlay, thanks for being here today. And we'll see you guys next time. See you later.